Hi, everyone. Welcome to our virtual PD series. And today we're focusing on GMath, which is an awesome extension provided by through Google Chrome Store that you can access and then use in our safe Superior Greenstone District School Board GAFE environment. And the benefits of GMath, there's many, and our speaker today is going to dive right into that. But for purposes of today's PD and making the connection to our renewed math strategies, it really does, not only does it help the teacher become more efficient with their workflow, all of the worksheets and the assessments that you create can be stored in your Google Drive for Superior Greenstone District School Board, but you can easily share those activities with your students, and then not only through the Google Docs, but also through the GMath extension, there is opportunities for both you and the students to communicate learning and feedback. So again, it just makes that really strong connection that we're trying to strive for in our RMS, very, very easy within our safe SGDSB GAFE environment. So the speaker we have with us today is Jamie Malay. She is out of Manitouwadge High School, and she is a TELC, and she is rocking visible learning at Manitouwadge High School for all of us to learn from through her Twitter account and her posts. And so today she's going to share all of her awesome knowledge about GMath. So I'm going to turn it over to Jamie.
Hi, I'd like to say I really like GMath, and they've made it a lot easier and friendlier to use. So when I first started using it, you had to code in LaTeX to get anything really showing, but they've made it a lot simpler. So I'm going to look at creating a simple math expression. So that could be from just getting it to insert something like 1/2 plus 1/2 or 2 plus 2. And what's nice is you'll type it out and then it inserts a digital image into a Google Doc. So first thing, obviously, that you want to do, and I'm going to share my screen with you now. Can everybody see?
I believe I'm still sharing, so.
I'm in my Google Drive, so you should hopefully see my Google Drive. So you obviously go through and you open a new Google Doc. And I apologize, the Wi-Fi at my end is maybe not the fastest, so there might be little small delays. So the first thing you do once you've titled your document is you're going to go into add-ons. So GMath is an add-on for Google Docs and for Google Forms. But Google Forms is something that we're going to touch at a whole other session, so don't worry about that right now. But you go to add-ons, you'll go to get add-ons. If you don't already have it, you type in GMath, and it might be one of the first things that pop up. And then you'll just, where it says manage on my screen, you'll say get add-on, and it'll add it into Google Docs. Once it's been added, you just go down the tool, and we're going to look at the create math expressions first. So what's really nice about this is when you compare trying to type math into, say, a Microsoft Office document, it gets really choppy and hard to type. Like sometimes you go into an expression creator, you got to type into the keys to click with your mouse to each section. And it gets really annoying really quickly. And it's time consuming. And the whole purpose of this is to work smarter, not harder, right? If you want to finish quickly, you don't want to waste a lot of time. So what I've also done is it's shared in the slide deck that Stacy will share with you, or if she hasn't already. But there's keyboard shortcuts. So we're just dealing in the simple expression creator right now, and this right here is where you would type. So there's some quick hint sections. There's some kind of uniform keystrokes that you know certain things represent other things. Like, for example, I wanted to make an exponent. I know that I always call it the hat on top of the 6. You press shift and then 6. That's our exponent reference, right? So if I wanted to make x squared or 2 squared or any kind of number raised to an exponent, what you see on my Google Doc, is exactly what I type into the expression creator. So I would type in x, shift 6. Oh, sorry. I didn't re-click into the symbol, so that's something that you're going to have to watch for. But created my expression or whatever else it is that I need to type, I click on this, which is the insert the math, and it inserts an image of this into the Google Doc where your cursor was. And then it has a link that you can change and remove it. This button here is the edit math, so you would click on this and you could go and re-edit, or you have to select. And then you can edit the expression. So just looking at the key feature, simple expression that we're working in, you can delete your current expression here, insert the math, edit your math. There's a nice voice to text feature. So if I press the speech input and allow my microphone, right? So you can see it picks up pretty nicely. X squared. Okay, so that one didn't work, but sometimes it's just how you speak it. X squared. X to the power of 2. There you go. So it's how you speak it for it to work into the expression creator. So that's exponents. You can get it to write a fraction. So I know a lot of us are doing in fractions, so we can use fractions with variable and fractions just using regular numerals. So this works across the board for the elementary panel as well. So what you would press is your fraction. So say I wanted to create 1/2. So press 1 and then forward slash, and then 2. So that, when I enter it in the simple expression creator, should give me, there we go. Sometimes it's going to, but it will give me 1/2 in that one. So it's a lot nicer if you're trying to do a Google Doc and you want it to be like they would see in a textbook or any kind of professional publication. If you're going to do a more complicated fraction, it's a little trickier, I'm not going to lie, but still pretty easy to use. So if you click into here, what you have to do is you type your numerator first. So say I was using this as a grade 9 math teacher and I needed to add some kind of variable into my fraction. I could write 3 plus 2x, which is what I typed. And then what I do is I highlight, and then without pressing anything else, I would press my forward slash, and then I could put my denominator down. And then again, I just get it to insert as well. They also have these little things. So if you want the multiplication symbol, the actual little x, what you would write is, so it's the backslash, which is above your enter key on your keyboard. And you would write times. Yes. And then you simply put that into the expression creator. Sorry. It makes a little multiplication. So I could put 3 times 6 if I was making a worksheet or a quick review or writing out a test on Google Docs and I didn't want just a regular X, and sometimes that gets confusing for students, and again, it'll insert. The other thing that I will mention is what's nice with the expression creator, particularly, is that you see here it says math writing tips. So if you're ever stuck, and all of these little shortcuts that I'm showing you right now are here on the math writing tips. So it tells you exactly what to type to get what you need. So exponent or power, use the little hat key to move to superscript. They have fractions, complicated fractions, division, pi, congruent, which you might not use unless you're in at least grade 6, because we're talking about, congruent when you're in the upper math, etc. So it all goes through, and you can see what you need, and they have little quick hints. And I made a Google Doc that's linked to the Google Slides presentation, so you also have access to the cheat sheet. The next thing that we might want to look at is the graph creator. And again, it's good for more than just what you'll see. So you go back into GMath, and then you go to create a graph instead of create math expressions. So what you should be seeing is this sidebar here. And as you can see, they have some functions already placed in there. If you're not dealing with functions, you can just clear it out right away and don't even bother. But for what you can see, if you're making scatter plots or just regular point graphs, this is where you'll be dealing most of the time. And the only other thing that I would mention is here in the graph zoom region, you can control your axes. So if you're only dealing in one part, the positive x, y plane, you don't need the whole Cartesian plane, right? You don't need all 4 sections. So you can choose your x minimum would be 0, and you can go from 10, you can go to 100 if you want, and then you choose what your scale is, and then same with y. You only really need to go to 1 or 0. So it'll start and stop there. If you need bigger numbers, you just edit it here, and then you can preview what it'll look like, and it'll preview right into the window. It's kind of small and hard to see, kind of, but you guys can kind of see here. And that'll just insert a bigger image into the Google Doc. They have commonly used constants and things, areas that you might need here. But again, you're not really going to touch that until high school. But here, if you're trying to plot points, this is where you would go. So it shows you how to enter it. And we know that we plot points as X and Y. So you use the little squiggle brackets. And then if I wanted to plot 1 and 1, and then comma, squiggle bracket, 2, 2, 3 and 3, etc., etc. And then what I just press from here, I have to go back up, which is only kind of annoying in some ways, but it's still pretty nice feature. So my little graph is plotted here. So I can see the 3 points that I plotted. It doesn't label the X and Y axes, which is one of the fallbacks I find, but it's clearly registered and it shows on grid lines, which you can control here, like show grid lines on the graph. So that's nice if you're trying to make a nice, neat, orderly form.
So Jamie,
yeah.
the teacher could then just use insert a text box to label the graph on their own, right?
Yes.
Perfect.
You could do that.
Yep. If it was something that was really key, right?
I feel like what I've done before is I'm going to see if it works. I might be lying. I've copied the graph, and then I go to insert drawing. So I'm fairly certain I did this. Otherwise, I had a dream that I did this and it worked. But there you go. See, so I just pressed copy, and I now pasted the graph into Google Drawing. And then if I wanted to do anything else with it, so I could label my axes, I could give it a title, I could make a little legend. Although I will show you something the legend pops up when we're dealing with functions, not plot points. But you do have access to edit and things like this, so you can make a Google Drawing that way.
And just to interject here, Jamie, so the Google Drawings too, if the students are using their own individual sheet or Google Doc, they can then use the Google Drawing to even further communicate their learning. So to explain what it is, explain their math thinking. And there's shapes they can insert, arrows, as well as text. So that could really enhance the communication piece for both the student and the teacher by using the Google Drawings as well.
And then on top of talking about commenting, if you click on the image, you can still leave a comment like you would on a regular Google Doc. So I could press here and be like, this is the title, was a student and I had commenting access. Or I could leave more comments explaining, because we want kids to be able to explain and analyze what a graph means. So what is the data showing me, right? So you could have it, even if it's just a comment, so they've done all the work and then they're like, okay, I have to explain what my graph is showing. They can do it this way as well. When it comes to functions, which I know I think it's cool, and some other high school teachers might also. So I need to clear this, because if I'm trying to insert a separate graph and I don't clear this, it's going to show my function along with the plotted points. So that's something else that you have to be aware of, is you have to make sure that you clear all of your other work before you start making another function. Otherwise, you get something really intense and crazy and hard to read. So I just press clear and it deletes all of my other stuff. So what's nice is if I know I'm dealing in sine or cosine or tangent, I can click on it and then it inserts directly into the Google Doc. The other thing that as a math teacher I might complain about is normally when we're talking about functions with students, we talk about it as a full equation, right? We talk about y equals sine x. This won't work. When you go to insert the doc, there will be an error message that'll pop up, or it will just leave a blank document. So that's one criticism. However, if you're just getting them to graph to show something else, you can still, or even if you're creating it as a test and you're getting them to talk about translations and everything else, if you inserted it and then you just get them to describe what's happening or any other question that might be there, you can still give them an image of the graph to work with. And it has to be, if we're talking about this trigonometric function in particular, the first one is always, like under the tangent function, has to be capital T, A, N, and then the square bracket, X, close square bracket. So say I wanted to insert sine and tangent, I can now do that. So I need to change my graph zone regions. So I'm going to go back to -10 for my minimum values, and I'll insert into the document. Okay, and as you can see, there's now a legend, right? So it's showing me that sine is the blue wave, and tangent is the yellow. And then say I didn't want this, I can remove it. I just click remove. Oh, sorry. That was wrong. The link was to remove. I can just delete my document and say I just want a graph of sine. Well, I know that sine has a maximum and min y value of -1. So I might show -2 so I can see close up. So I've got a bigger picture of the graph, but it's also distorted. So that's a good question. Like that's a good topic to discuss with your students anyway. What I've done as well is say you don't want any functions and say you don't want any plot points. Say your question or your worksheet or your assessment question that they're working on is they have to do the graph themselves. Well, you can insert just a blank graph into the document. So again, if your defaults are -10 and 10, we can insert that. So I'm going to insert into the document that way. Okay. And also what's nice is, of course, you can see the size. As you can see, as it expands, certain things start to cut off. So we know that our y value, the vertical axis, is from -10 to 10, which we can see, but they've only labeled up to -8, right? So it depends on your steps, and it depends on what your max and min values are. So there are some limitations, but overall, it's pretty good. So that's the graph feature. So I need to go back into add-ons and they can create a statistical display. So when you're talking about data management units, Google also has a solution for that. So you insert your data, and if you have a table in your Google Doc already, you can get it to load the data from the table. Sometimes it's hit or miss. It's glitched out on me before doing this, but the fact that that feature is available is really nice, and as long as your table is in the proper order, it normally works out. How you have the table versus what you want is something else as well. So you then can create your chart. So of course, if you title it, you need to choose between a histogram, a bar chart, or a box and whisker plot, and you also get to preview. I don't use this feature as much, simply because of the content I teach, but I did make a Google Doc with this one as well, and I was able to be a little finicky with my data. So I made up some fictional marks, and what's nice is you do not need to enter the numbers in correct sequence, so they can be random, and it'll still plot, okay? The one thing I did notice is when it's displaying the data, it doesn't change the chart color. If anyone figures out how to do this, please let me know. But, so here we go. So here are the different. Okay, here we go. So this was a histogram, bar chart, and then the box and whisker plots of the fictional made-up marks. So it is interesting in that you can still graph your data and you can insert statistics like this into a Google document. I'm still not quite as familiar with it, so I don't know as much, but for sure it's something to play with, and it's pretty good at letting you know if there's an error, because it just doesn't insert or doesn't work, or it'll say error, so you know that there's something wrong that you need to fix. The final thing, which is kind of neat, is if your tool that you're using has touchscreen, you can do it also with like a mouse and keypad, but it's a bit harder. But GMath allows you to create handwriting entries, which is really nice. So if you click on the handwriting feature, this is what pops up, and you're limited to this space. So it doesn't get bigger or smaller. So that's a little constricting, but the fact that students it doesn't even necessarily have to be handwritten, they can draw you something quickly. So if your question was represent 3/4 two different ways, well, they can draw that. So they can pick the pen width, and they can pick the color, and then so they have to represent 3/4. Well, they might have a square. I'm going to avoid squares, Kathleen, or circles, because I know that they're not necessarily the greatest thing. So that's 3/4 one way, and maybe I'll show it as a number line. Zero, 1, and this is 1/2. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. There's 3/4. And then I can insert it directly into my document. And there we go. Now we've got an actual piece of student work. It's in their handwriting. It's created by them, and it's a visual representation, which is huge. It's more personal than just typing. Now, the only other feature that I want to talk about really, really quickly, since we have 4 minutes, is it's an extension to Google Chrome, and it's called Equato, and it's by the same people who made GMath and Google Read and Write. But it's a little overbar, and it's the same thing. So it has an expression editor. You can handwrite, and you can have a voice-to-text feature, and it inserts into your Google Doc as well. So it works. Equato only works in Google Docs and Google Forms, just like GMath does. It just gives you a different platform. But it's the same kind of keystroke if I want to insert specific things. So I press X, I press shift 6, and then I put my 2, and it made x squared. And then I insert the math, or I can clear it. I can write, if you double click, it disappears. I can write here, and it'll recognize and input the math this way. So this handwriting feature, this translates handwriting into the math input. So if I wanted to write 1/2, it makes my fraction here. And I think that's all I've got to share with you right now. Are there any questions?
Jamie, thank you so much. That's an awesome overview. I feel like even I could go in tomorrow and start creating some math. But what I really like about this tool is the ability to, that communication piece is just, not only are we working within our safe environment, but just the multiple ways that the students can demonstrate their learning, and that the teachers can see that visible thinking and really help inform the next steps of the students. So thank you so much for giving up your time today and for helping to build that resource that we'll be sharing out as soon as this session is done. So we have an audience today, so yay. So does anyone in the audience have a question for Jamie?
Hi, Jamie. Just wondering if you played around with it at all on the iPad or anything else like that. Just wondering, I really like the feature where kids could actually draw within that limited box, but recognizing how that might help to support and insert into a possible shared document.
I haven't played around with my iPad at all with Google Docs, but let's see. I have my iPad here with me. I have Google Docs. I'm trying to remember if you have access to your add-ons through Google Docs when you're using that. No?
I don't know either, but I'm thinking it would just be something that I would be interested in taking a look at, and that's fine if you're not sure.
Like, I have a touch screen laptop, which is super handy if I want to use handwriting capabilities, right? Because I get really frustrated when I have to like drag and click with the mouse. Like, that's one of the worst things you can ask a kid to do. Let's see if I have.
So Kathleen, while Jamie's looking at that, so there's some very obvious connections with our goals this year, right, around numeracy?
Yeah, and at first when I'm thinking about some of those connections there with helping students to communicate their thinking, often kids can communicate it orally. So when we're taking a look at creating something, whether it's a shared PDF or the fact that it's a shared Google Doc, and whether they can audio record to insert their thinking, or the fact that they can create a visual representation and insert it. When we're thinking early elementary, not too sure about the whole equation writer part. And what was the name of that other part at the end, Jamie, too, that wasn't the GMAT? But
it's called Equato, so equate and then capital I-O. And I've also inserted into the presentation hot links to their page in the Google Web Store address for it. And it's just for expressions. It won't graph or create a chart or anything. It's just if you want to put in expressions and operations.
That would be beneficial possibly for some of our elementary, just working with those simple problems and being able to think, can they translate what the problem is saying into an actual mathematic expression? What does that look like in their writing, and when it translates over into what it looks like in a written, like computer language, to see if it's making the similar connections. There could be room to play around with that too. So thanks, Jane.
No problem. I'm looking on the app for iPad, and I don't seem to have any access to my add-ons, so it doesn't look like you can do it that way, which is unfortunate. I know there's like with you plug in with a USB and it gives you like a flat writable surface that a lot of artists use, but I feel like again they're pricey because it's a niche market. But if we had flat pads or something like that where you plug in and it registers like the pen strokes for students to write. But again, if we have access to iPads, we want to use iPads. But it doesn't seem like that works.
Well, we'll investigate a little more. Thank you for trying, Jamie. Are there any more questions? Okay, I'm going to stop the recording, and I want to thank you all for giving up the end of your day. And thanks again, Jamie, for all your effort with this and for spreading your GMAT expertise across the board and for making your learning visible. Okay, we really appreciate it.
So just play with it, and then if as you're exploring, tweet me or something. Show me your progress, because that'd be exciting to see.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. And you know what? That's the best advice you can give to anybody trying something new, right? Just play with it. So have fun playing with GMath. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.